Home isn't just a place, it's a feeling that you're safe to enjoy the things that matter most. ADT lets you take that feeling with you, whether you're at home, your business, or online. We help keep you safe with security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling for less than $1 a day. ADT. Home. Safe home.
It's Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. The show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Greeny's out today. Will Kane sitting in with Golic. All guests will be on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, which should include Charles Barkley.
Yes.
Who else we got today, Golic? Got Field Yates.
Yeah, we have Adam Schefter, Sal Palantonio covering the fight, the big fight this Saturday, McGregor and Mayweather, which seems to be taking some interesting turns. And Bickler, for those that listen to the show, Travis, we're going to call him Bickler on our staff, I'm going to find a new job for him today. Those on TV may see it. Those on radio, I'll just explain to you. There's a fly that's aggravating me. I showered. I'm clean, but there's a fly around me. So Bickler may have to stand by me and be the fly deterrent.
Okay.
Somehow either have the fly go toward him or have some sort of fly swatter type thing to get rid of said fly because it is in my face and in my grill.
I have no idea if Travis has a microphone over there at all, but I would love to know Travis's, a.k.a. Bickler's, educational background and history and all the moments in his life, the training that led to this crucial job.
Hey, Bickler, I see the fly.
It's on his
It's
coffee
on my
mug.
coffee cup.
Come.
It is in my coffee cup.
This is it.
This is your moment.
No, it's right here. Right
You're
here.
hitting me in the head. You're hitting me. You're nowhere near. Don't just shush it away. It's going to keep flying around me. You're going to have to make it expire, okay? I hate to say you're going to have to kill something, but the fly's got to go.
Mom and Dad are so proud right now, Travis.
Yeah, all that money spent on education. Get rid of the fly that's flying around Golic.
We got your back today, Golic. If it's not Travis, I'll try to reach over and swat that fly away.
I appreciate that very much.
Let's do this. Let's start with Off the Top.
Off the top. The top.
The Dodgers beat the Pirates 6-5 in extra innings thanks in large part to a Curtis Granderson grand slam, who also hit a grand slam in his final at-bat with the Mets Thursday. From Elias, Granderson is the first player in Major League Baseball history to hit a grand slam for two different teams over a 4-game span. But it wasn't all good news for the Dodgers. Nope, as the team announced post-game that Alex Wood could be headed to the DL with shoulder inflammation.
Yeah, that's bad. With already Kershaw just starting to throw, coming back. Alex Wood has been so dominant. The only one more dominant has been Kershaw. This is a team that everybody is. It's kind of like the Cubs going into the postseason. Oh, they're the favorite in the World Series. That's how it is for the Dodgers now. Yet your top two pitchers, have some issues going on. Puig does hit the go-ahead home run in the 12th inning, so good for he has 22 home runs this year. That's the same amount he's had the last 2 years combined. But you can make all the runs you want, but if you don't have your pitching all set up and lined up for the postseason, the Dodgers could be in a bit of trouble.
What a farewell and hello from Curtis Granderson.
Not bad at all.
Grand slam in your goodbye with the Mets. Grand slam not long after you arrive at the Dodgers to win a game.
Two different teams, 4-game span. The Dodgers, by the way, have 8 grand slams this season, 2 more than any other team, and tied for third most in a season in franchise history.
Off the top. The top.
Alabama's been named the preseason AP number 1. That was yesterday as it received 52 of 61 first-place votes. However, history is against the Tide winning it all. None of the previous 3 times that the Crimson Tide have been preseason number 1 under Nick Saban did it win the national championship, and that's not relegated just to Alabama. None of the previous 9 teams to receive at least 50 first-place votes in the preseason won it all.
Yeah, it's been somewhat ugly. We'll see what Bama does this year. The lowest of those 9, as you said, to have at least 50 was Alabama in 2010. They ended up finishing 10th that year. Second lowest, Alabama in 2013. They had 58 first-place votes, and they finished 7th that year. 1975, you have to go back to. Oklahoma was the last team with at least 50 first-place votes in preseason to finish the year ranked number 1. So
1975.
Yeah, it's a long, long time ago. It's almost seems to be that curse to not only be ranked number 1, but have that many votes for you. And we'll see. They start out with a loaded Florida State team. I can't wait for that game in a couple of weeks. But between Ohio State, other good teams out there as well. while we go in every year saying Alabama's a favorite, it wouldn't shock me at all, if they don't win it again this year, again, living up to the curse of being ranked number one and having over 50 first-place votes.
Not to overthink this, which I can just feel you coming back to me with that kind of criticism. Man, it tells us something about certainty. We're really sure 50 first-place votes and never get that right.
Not
Never.
one. 50 first-place votes. The AP poll is out. They had 52 votes to Alabama. Number 2, Ohio State had 3 votes. Number 3, Florida State had 4 votes. USC had 2 votes. They were number 4, and Clemson is number 5. So that's your top 5 in the AP poll.
Off the top.
With tickets starting in the thousands, Mayweather-McGregor is expected to break the record for the largest gate in Nevada combat sports history, $72 million for Mayweather-Pacquiao. Mayweather already holds 5 of the last 6 gates in Nevada combat sports history, with McGregor holding the top MMA gate in history at $17.7 million for UFC 205.
It's amazing. The top gate for Nevada history, Mayweather-Pacquiao, $72 million. Second, Mayweather-Alvarez, $20 million. What a monster difference. We know the build-up for that Pacquiao fight. We're getting the same thing for McGregor, where the odds have really – McGregor's not favored, but he was so far underdog. He was underdog almost as much as anybody going against the UConn women, which would be a pretty heavy underdog. But now that is really – the money has really gone McGregor's way. The odds have really dropped from that. Again, he's not favored, but there's some interesting or legitimate concern, would you say, for Vegas?
Some
if McGregor were to win this thing?
Yes, that one-punch potential knockout from McGregor has some casinos on the hook for something like $3 million. I think the betting ratio was at one time 50-1, dropped down to 25-1, meaning everybody's going in, little boxing knowledge, doesn't care, flying like, I'm just going to put a flyer on McGregor.
That's exactly right. I can make some buco bucks if I do that. I think you're going to lose your money. I don't think McGregor is going to win, but that's why we're all getting the fight, waiting for that one punch.
Off the top.
So the Denver Broncos have officially named Trevor Siemian as starting quarterback. Broncos coach Vance Joseph announced his decision at a news conference, naming Siemian the clear-cut winner. Interesting phrase there. Clear-cut winner in his competition with Paxton Lynch for the starting job. And this is the quote from Vance Joseph. After a long battle, we've decided to go with Trevor Siemian as our quarterback. For the second summer in a row, Siemian has turned away challengers to be the starter. Last year, it was Lynch and Mark Sanchez. This year, Siemian and Lynch again were in the running. Joseph and GM John Elway repeatedly called this an open competition, though, almost from the time Joseph was hired in January.
So it either talks about Siemian playing well or the competition that's been around him has been subpar. And if you're going to go down that road, remember, it's a first-round pick in Paxton Lynch. We have some other numbers to go with that don't bode well for Paxton Lynch. But give Siemian all the credit in the world. It's a 7th-round pick. This is a guy that wasn't counted on to be the quarterback of the future for anybody, but he's taken advantage, as you mentioned last year. Lynch was a rookie then, but Mark Sanchez was there, and this year it was just he and Paxton Lynch. He's taken advantage of his situation, put himself in a good position. Started 14 games last year. 18 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, I think 3,400 yards. I don't think he's ever going to be near the top of the pack of quarterbacks, but they need him to be serviceable. But on the other side of that, is this more a sign that the Denver Broncos are still in the market for their next future quarterback if you don't think Paxton Lynch is going to be that guy? We were ready to sell off Jared Goff. He was the number 1 pick in the draft.
You think we did that a little early? Did we do that?
Well, I mean, maybe, but the point is we were ready to sell him off as the number 1 pick. Paxton Lynch is going into his second year now and can't beat out a 7th rounder. So what could be said about that?
As you said, we got some ugly numbers on what that means for Paxton Lynch. We'll unpack a little bit later.
Off the top.
And last night, the Giants lost to the Browns 10-6 in preseason action. But more importantly, New York's top 2 receivers, Odell Beckham Jr. and Brandon Marshall, Beckham with an ankle, Marshall with a shoulder, left with injuries. Beckham Jr. has averaged 95.9 receiving yards per game in his career, the highest mark over players' first 3 seasons in the NFL.
Well, I mean, listen, the bottom line is if that injury was anything devastating, when you first looked at it, you thought it was a knee, and then you were like, okay, it's an ankle. Okay, it's better ankle than a knee. Just make sure it's not anything torn or broken. And then if it's just a sprain, you hope it's not a high ankle sprain. You start going down the list of possible injuries and how long you could be out. He seems to think he'll be there for opening weekend. But this brings up a whole new set of questions. Overall, we can talk about the game and the Giants and their lack of running game and their troubles on the offensive line and their excellent defense on what they'll do in the division, which I'm sure we'll get to. But I know that Twitter went crazy with the hit last night, so I know that's something we're going to get into and need to talk about.
Yeah, let's do that. But this has been
Off the Top.
Mike and Mike is presented by Progressive Insurance. Now, you can test drive Snapshot to see how much you could save before switching to Progressive. Visit progressive.com/snapshot. So last night, as you said, there's this hit on Odell Beckham Jr. that sent Twitter ablaze. Is this dirty? Is it not dirty? How serious is it for Odell Beckham Jr.? By the way, Golic, when he went down and walked off the field, walked along the sidelines with no help, it didn't look that serious until he gets to the tunnel, and there's this image of him collapsing down onto his knees. And also, worth noting, no one around Odell Beckham Jr., all by himself.
Yeah, he took off for the line. Well, to kind of set the picture if you didn't see it. Now, I have seen, Will, players walk off the field with a slight limp and have their ACL torn.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yes. I have seen that.
Is that gritting it out toughtness, or is that really can't feel it at the moment?
It could be a little bit of both. Just you don't want to believe it, so you're going to just get up and walk and say, I can walk. You know, adrenaline may take over at that point, but you're like, it's not hurt that bad. I can walk, and you walk, and you walk. And then as it wears, as adrenaline may wear off, you're going to start to feel the pain a little bit. But for Beckham, he just got up. He stayed on the field for a little bit, never laid down, just kind of squatted down, got up, walked off the field, and then basically just took off and jogged to the locker room. He got ahead of all the trainers and stuff up toward the locker room, and then obviously the camera followed him, and then he kind of went down on his knees right outside the locker room, and then the trainer got there, helped him up, and they went into the locker room. And I tweeted right away on it. To me, there was nothing wrong with the hit. It was it Brian Bodie Calhoun, I believe is his name, was the DB who hit him. And one of the first tweets I saw was from someone named Wheels, said, I'm sorry, but rather they go high and then after the knees, cut tackles need to be banned, go low, tackle, don't cut. Wheels, I don't know what to tell you. Do you see what's happening in the league? Do you know what's going on with head injuries and what the league is trying to do and take them out? If a player goes high, they are going to get flagged and they are going to get fined. And if they don't get flagged, that still doesn't mean they're not going to get fined. They can get fined after the fact when they watch the tape again. So DBs are going to go low. The game has taken them there. And we can all have a problem with that. I understand the correction to protect the head. I get it. You don't want headshots. You don't want a guy missiling. But I think to a point they've overcorrected. Maybe they felt they needed to with the more information about the head injuries, with the concussion lawsuit, whatever it may be, that they were throwing flags too quickly. Way too quickly. Wide receivers changing the levels on their own. A DB, aiming for the chest, and all of a sudden the wide receiver drops their head, and the DB gets flagged for that and gets fined for that. If I were a DB, I'd be scared to death on where to hit a guy. Scared to death on where to hit a guy. So they're going to go low. And that's a reason, because a wide receiver will change levels. So you may have the good intention of going midsection to chest, and that wide receiver drops his head. You make any contact with it, the flag comes out, and the fine comes out. We saw earlier in the game, Brandon Marshall on a sideline play reached out for a pass, didn't catch it, and Jabril Peppers, the rookie from Michigan, hit him, and they threw a flag. And I thought, I almost lost my flipping mind. And luckily, the refs got together, and a couple of them said, no. He used his shoulder, went shoulder to shoulder, no head contact at all, and they picked up the flag, which was the right thing to do. But they're going to throw the flag, and the DBs know that. So this kid went low on Beckham. I don't blame him one bit. The rules are dictating that's where you need to hit these guys, and it's a shame because you ask wide receivers, and they'd rather you hit them high. We had Chris Collinsworth on. He'd say, hit me high all day. Don't hit me in the knees, because what happens, Will, is the knees are that injury is right now. You blow a knee out, you're done. You know you're done for 12 months. And how it's been with guys, now we're learning more, is that they get stung in the head, they'll have a headache, they may have a concussion, but they'll be back in a week or two and playing. That was the mentality. That's what we're trying to change. We're trying to protect the head, protect the concussions, and protect that part of the body more. So this is the ancillary thing that happens because of it. You're going to go lower just to play it safe and to not get a flag or get fined.
Now, anybody that's played sports, anybody that's run for that matter, knows you feel incredibly insecure and vulnerable at the knee and ankle level.
Yeah, absolutely.
But ESPN NFL analyst and future Hall of Famer, a guy that knows a thing or two about playing defensive back in the NFL, Charles Woodson, agrees with your analysis on this hit. Listen.
For this guy, everybody's talking about should he be the highest paid player in the league.
He's about to get paid.
You're out there in preseason. He's going to get paid. And all of a sudden you take a hit down low, which I would say is not a dirty hit. For one, I think the defender lost his footing. So I don't think he necessarily tried to hit him low. But you can't hit him high.
Right.
So where does the defender hit him?
So Golic, I hear everything you've just said. And I feel the predicament that a defensive back is in. If you go high, you get flagged for targeting. You get a serious penalty that costs your team and possibly costs you some money. Right. If you go middle and you try to take the time to really size up and get what you think might be a fair and legal and because this hit's legal as well, I guess a hit that no one criticizes, right. You run the risk of one of the best players in the NFL with a little shoulder shimmy and move running for a touchdown, so you don't have time to say, hey, where's the exact right place to hit him? And you go low and now you're in this situation. But here's my question for you. And it's honestly probably a better question for Charles Woodson because most of the time the guy you were hitting was 3 inches away from your head.
Right.
But how much time do you honestly
Split
have
second.
in most of these?
Split second. Split second. I mean, we get to see slow motion replay.
Right.
But you get a split second. You know that if you take his legs out, he's not getting yards after the catch. You know,
when you see this, you heard Woodson say that it looked like Calhoun lost his footing a little bit.
Right.
Do you think, and it doesn't just have to be in this situation, when DBs go low, that is a calculated decision to go that low?
Well, I think not. I think in the last couple of years, they're going lower than they normally would because they're playing it. Because as I said, his aiming point, if he slipped, his aiming point is probably now the hip to the midsection or the hip to the chest. Hit that guy in that area there. That's the spot. Hit him, wrap him up, tackle him. That's what you want to see, or drive your shoulder in there, one of the two.
That's what's happening in training camp. That's where defensive coordinators and position coaches are saying, when you come in, wrap up at the hip.
Well, there's two things. In training camp, rarely do you take anybody to the ground.
Right.
And number two, you're not hitting anybody low in training camp.
Right.
So that hit you saw there, even if, say he didn't slip and he was trying to go low and take the legs out, that's not happening in camp.
But my point about camp is where are the coaches saying
they
to you,
want
hit
you,
them here?
They want you to hit you from the hip to the chest.
Okay.
Because and hit either with the shoulder or wrap with the arms and take them down. But as I said, in a game when it's split second and you know where you are in the field, if you're a DB, you know you're in position to make a play on the ball. If you're not, then you got to make sure if they catch it, you try and separate the man from the ball. And if they catch it, you try not to give them any yards after the catch. That's what's going through your mind in a split second. Can I make a play on the ball? Can I separate man from the ball? Make sure I tackle him and don't give him yards after the catch. Those are all decisions that are made basically in a split second. And over time, that's kind of what you do. So in camp, you're not hitting anybody low. In camp, you're rarely taking anybody down. Now, maybe when these teams are practicing with one another, like we see more and more of, maybe they have some live segments where they are taking people to the ground, but they're saying don't take anybody out at the leg. So this is now part of the game because you get in that game. That's what I said. Guys, I think it's helped that guys, have stopped missiling as much, leaving their feet, putting their head down. That definitely needs to be out of the game. That's dangerous. You got to flag that, fine that. I get it. So what happens is a DB will start to aim to the midsection to the chest, either with a shoulder or to wrap up and try and take a guy out that way. But as I said, a wide receiver catches the ball. He knows he's going to get hit, so he starts to curl. And when he curls, his head comes down. So now your aiming point of the midsection, now you catch part of the head because the wide receiver dropped his head. And the league is saying, hey, DB, that's on you. That's not on the receiver. Flag, probably a fine. So that's what the DBs are dealing with. It's just hard to play defensive back with the rules in the game now than any other position.
Essentially, you've got a hitting zone. You're trying to come in this hitting zone from shoulder to essentially thigh.
And forgetting that,
a guy dips his head into your hitting zone.
Into your hitting zone. And, oh, by the way, you can't touch a guy after 5 yards as well. Right. So in college, remember in college what they changed to, we always talk about quarterback differences. You can can hit a guy all the way down the field in college, just as long as the ball's not in the air. There's no 5-yard chuck rule in college. You can be banging a guy 20 yards down the field as long as the ball's not in the air. You get to the pros, you got 5 yards, and that's it. And they call it more and more and more illegal contact downfield. So now you got to get your hands off of them, and then you got to go make a play on them, and you got to make a play in the specific area. That area gets crunched even more when the wide receiver dips his head. So it's tough. So they're saying, you know what, screw it, I'm going low. And sometimes that's going to lead to a gruesome-looking injury. And let me tell you, if Odell Beckham Jr. was done for the season, they're done for the season because they can't run the ball. They have trouble protecting Eli Manning. Their defense is excellent. It's like that's what's going to carry this team because the running game can't carry it. And then you have Odell Beckham, who, is in the top 1, 2, or 3 of best receivers in the league.
Mike and Mike is presented by Progressive Insurance. We mentioned it earlier. Here's our guest list for today. Field Yates at 6:30, Charles Barkley at 7:30, Adam Schefter at 8:30, and Sal Palantonio, who I don't know if he's already in Vegas, but he's focused on Mayweather-McGregor at 9:30. All phone guests will be on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. If you miss any of those guests, you can listen to all 4 hours of Mike and Mike on demand in the ESPN app. You just pointed it out. John Gruden last night pointed it out. This team is about those receivers. And Odell Beckham Jr. wasn't the only one to sustain an injury last night. Brandon Marshall had a tweak of his shoulder as well. Listen to Gruden quickly last night.
I can't imagine him carefully. I mean, this guy's 26% of your entire offensive output. They're going to use a lot of caution with Odell Beckham, obviously. They need to get Brandon Marshall on the field because he needs to learn this offense. This is a timing, rhythm offense, something that's new to Marshall. From my understanding, it hasn't been easy for him. He had 1 catch for 2 yards tonight. He didn't have a great season last year, but he needs time on the grass with Eli Manning. Sterling Shepard came back from his ankle injury. This is a no-huddle offense. This is an offense that relies on hand signals, a lot of nonverbal communication. They can't afford to not have any of these guys on the field together. It's very important.
Not a great year for Marshall last year with the Jets. 2 years ago, he had a nice year for them. This one, it was a sideline pass. He didn't make the catch. A lot of people think he short-armed it. I'm not worried about Brandon Marshall and catching the ball and toughness. That's going to be fine. Give Jabril Peppers a lot of credit. Came over and popped him really good. That's where Marshall hurt his shoulder. So it looks like he'll be all right as well. But that's without question, going to be the strength of that. Eli Manning may throw the ball 800 times this year. I mean, it may be just a ridiculous number.
Here's Louis Riddick from last night. He tweeted, Eli is going to set a career high in pass attempts in 17. Hashtag run game stinks again.
Yep.
I just can't imagine we're at a point here where a team is actually building around their wide receivers. I thought we'd
move
on from that.
It's amazing.
I thought between the Patriots and the Cowboys offensive line, we'd figured out a few things about winning.
Hey, everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Daddy, where do babies come from?
Honey?
Mommy went to the store.
Oh, well, you see, there's a mommy and a daddy, right?
Right.
And see, when they call Geico, they could save a bunch of money on car insurance.
Oh, really? And that makes them happy?
Yes, that makes them very happy.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we could have this talk, sunshine.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Good job, Pro.
Hey, wait, before you get to tweets. Here, speaking of soft. You thought I was coming to you. You thought I was coming to you, Field.
What is that?
No, joining us now in studio, by the way, is Field Yates, and that wasn't my reference about
soft. Is that a segue to me? Wow, where are you going with that one, Will? Will is not afraid to stoke the flame, as you know, around here in these ESPN parts.
That's very true.
I'm tired of you not listening to me.
There we go.
My turn. My turn.
Yeah, see, listen, Will, no stranger to
I was
the people going
away in Colorado when that went on, from what I understand, that you tried to invoke if you yell it and talk louder, you may be more right, like I have lived the last 18 years.
Oh, Golic. I invoked that thing. Last Friday, for those listening that might not know what we're talking about, I lost my temper a little bit.
Uh-huh.
on first.
Will
day.
went viral. That's what happened.
Did I?
You went viral.
Yeah, I heard I was trending.
Maybe a little later we'll talk about why that was, and I'll jump in on that maybe and see if I can rally you up again, or if I agree with you, one of the two.
Wait. Before we get to football with Field here, I want to ask both you a question. Because speaking of soft, I had this debate yesterday when I was filling in on the Ryan Russillo show. Straws. Soft, yes?
Straws.
A man should not be drinking out of a straw.
Well, with a couple of exceptions, right? Like you put together a good workout, go maybe treat yourself to a protein shake, like from a smoothie or a smoothie bar. One of those two exceptions I think are reasonable, but I don't use a straw when I'm drinking a soda or having a drink at a bar.
My drink of choice, not of alcohol, is like me and my wife enjoy unsweetened iced tea. Mm-hmm. I never use a straw. I don't use a straw for water, tea, soda, anything.
It's because you're a man.
Well, so we're going that far? Otherwise? We're going that far that if a guy uses a straw, he's not a man?
I don't think we're going that far. I think it just is that far.
You think?
And
wow.
we're calling it like it is. I think, Field, you've nailed it. I mean, there's a few exceptions that include milkshakes and protein shakes.
Yeah, I would agree
Anything
with
a consistency
not that I
like
spend a lot of time drinking protein shakes, obviously. However, I do like a milkshake. During the summer, spend a day at the pool, maybe
because everyone knows when you're drinking a milkshake, you're safely in the man zone anyway.
Yeah, no, of course.
Things like
the 8-year-old man zone.
There, you're all right. I think I'm with you on that. The straw thing. I can't remember the last time I used a straw.
Little cocktail at the bar, drinking out of the cocktail straw.
Not happening.
Doesn't work.
You stir it, you toss it.
All right, Field Chase is brought to us by DraftKings. Try daily fantasy for free at DraftKings. Use code Mike now at DraftKings.com. Field, you tweeted this last night, and we just talked about this before you came on the show. Here's your tweet from last night. The Giants roster is primed to compete at so many spots, but Eric Flowers' liability cannot be overlooked. Major issues. How do we have a team that many are saying is definitely a playoff team? I don't know if anybody's going so far as to say Super Bowl contender, but as we pointed out, is built around the skill position, built around wide receivers with a major weakness at the offensive line.
Well, I would say this. I tell people this all the time, is if there is one thing that coaches, scouts, people around the NFL come to me with unsolicited, it is just how poor the offensive line play is in the league right now. And there are a lot of reasons. We don't have the time to get into all of them, but one of them is just that the way that college offenses are playing right now, these players are simply not trained to play at the NFL level as rookies or youngsters. But Eric Flowers entered the NFL with all the athletic tools you need to play as an offensive tackle. He was somewhat perceived as overdrafted, but the other school of thought is that if you have a guy that you think could be a starter for you right away at a critical spot, you got to use him. The Giants, as I mentioned, they are loaded. They've got perhaps the best defense in football. That is not such a crazy statement to make. The offense, as you mentioned, loaded at wide receiver. The running game is perhaps inept, but that might be more because the offensive line has had some struggles. Eric Flowers, and people got on me and saying that wasn't his fault, the Myles Garrett sack. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it was his fault or wasn't his fault. He has been a struggling player for them for over a year now, and that first half last night showed to me that he's going to continue to be an issue. And the passing game can be great if you have a running game and an offensive line that can help balance it out. But if you can't run the football, you become predictable, and when you become predictable, that means defenses can actually account for you. To me, it's a critical weakness for the Giants.
Listen, when I talk after the draft and I talk about players that I don't think should have been picked where they were, it's not like I enjoy talking about somebody who I don't think is as good as what other people think. But I said this exactly about Eric Flowers when he was drafted, that I didn't understand it. I didn't see it in college. And then you're going to make him play one of the most important positions on the field, left tackle. I shook my head at it, but I'm going to go even further and say, let's not just put it on Eric Flowers. Their whole line struggles. John Gruden mentioned it before. The right guard and right tackle, Hart and Jerry, struggle with stunts. What happened early in the game? A stunt by the Browns and a sack. I mean, they are struggling mightily. If you can't run the ball, it is not on one guy, though Eric Flowers is struggling, and a lot is on him because he was a first-round draft pick.
That fly get your mouth?
Fly?
Fly attack? The fly. It is on that entire offensive line from a pass protection standpoint and a run protection. As far as early running, when the ones are against the ones, Perkins was a running back for the Giants. This says it all. He had a long run. His longest run was 16 yards. Sounds pretty good, right? Of his 6 carries, one of them was for 16 yards. He finished the day with 6 carries for 10 yards.
Yeah.
That means he lost 6 yards in his other 5 carries. He's tackled behind the line of scrimmage. So while Flowers is struggling, and I think struggling mightily, that whole O-line is struggling. And that is why it's very difficult for me to – and I know they had a good record last year, and their running was bad last year. So – it's one of the reasons they're going to stay in this division race. We're going to see what happens with the Cowboys, how long they're going to miss Zeke. Does Dak go through the sophomore slump, as they say? Because I don't know if the Eagles, maybe Washington, we'll see what they go through with Cousins and some of the new wide receivers and Terrell Pryor. But we talk about the O-line. The O-line was sexy talk last year. Right. I mean, it was the Cowboys, it was the Raiders, it's the Titans, it's Washington, it's these lines that you got to build these lines, and that's something the Giants just haven't done well. And they've tried. Pugh's a first rounder. Flowers is a first rounder. I mean, they brought in some free agents. They just haven't found the right combination.
Well, maybe you just answered my question then, because it's certainly not all on Eric Flowers. This would be my question for both of you. I would put this on team management, team construction, general managing as well, because in a league now where the New England Patriots have won consistently over the years with not investing a ton in wide receiver. I mean, there's been the Randy Moss years, and now they've got Brandon Cooks, but there have been years when they've had guys on the field playing integral roles that were not sexy draft picks or free agent signings. Also a league where, as you point out, Golic, the Cowboys and the Raiders are defining success through the offensive line. How did the Giants get to a place where their major investment seems to be at the wide receiver position? It's counter to everything else going on in the league.
Well, I'd say this, is that they had some strokes of genius in getting to this point. I mean, taking Odell Beckham Jr. and drafting arguably the best wide receiver in football at the slot that they did, which was 11th or 12th in that year's draft back in 2014. I mean, that right there is a masterstroke. $1.8 million for a cornerstone of your franchise this season is unbelievable. I don't know that I put this really on Jerry Reese and the front office of the New York Giants. I think this might be – epidemic's a strong word when we're talking about a lack of players at a position, but the offensive line problem in the NFL is real. I mean, you talked about the Patriots and the Cowboys. Let's just use them as good examples of how – teams have gone about it differently, and it's worked out magnificently. The Cowboys have a bunch of first-round picks. They've got Zach Martin, the standout guard from Notre Dame. Travis Frederick, who everybody said, what are you guys doing taking Travis Frederick in the first round?
They were crushed for that.
Now he's the best center in football. Tyron Smith, left tackle, who moves like a linebacker. I mean, the guy's a freak. Lyle Collins probably would have been a first-round pick if he not had the issue just before the draft. So they've gone big, spend big, and they've got a ton of money invested in that. The Patriots have one first-round pick on their offensive line. It's left tackle Nate Solder. Then you're talking about a third-round guard, an undrafted center, a fifth-round right tackle, a right guard that's a fourth-round pick. So I think what it comes down to, the common thread for me, you got to have good players, but a good offensive line coach can do miracles for a line. Golic mentioned Washington, Bill Callahan, Dante Scarnecchia, for my money, the best offensive line coach in football, New England. That right there can really move the needle.
You also have to bring in, I put it on a lot of people, you got to bring in the players. You have a couple of first-rounders in Pugh and Flowers on that line, so you have to look at who you drafted. Then it falls down to how do you coach them. We said this about the Rams and quarterbacks. Bringing in quarterbacks, and were they worthy of high picks, and then is that coaching staff able to get them where they need to be? So I think that's the same thing you could look at any position. Were they worthy first-round picks, the offensive lineman guys or the Giants? And then if they weren't, so say they weren't first-round picks, maybe they were third-round picks, well, then you got to coach them up, because plenty of other teams, you just mentioned the Patriots, have third- and fourth-round picks at offensive line who get coached into and turn out to be excellent players. So even if they blew it taking guys in the first round, say they were third or fourth round picks, you still got to then coach them up. So I think it falls right on down the line to lay out the blame.
It's an excellent point. It completely and utterly destroys my observation of putting this on Jerry Reese. I mean, they've tried, to your point.
Well, they've tried.
Between Pugh and Flowers, they have tried to bring in talent on that offensive line. And I don't know if it's the coaching. Speaking of coaching, by the way, Ben McAdoo's haircut, I mean, just world's better, right? He clearly got some professional advice.
One of the best upgrades of the offseason. Yeah.
That could be the Giants' best move of the offseason.
I was going to say their swagger for this year, which I don't know if that's quantifiable, but I'm making it quantifiable right now, has leapt up several notches. I don't know if we have a video or picture of that on the screen right now, but that hair, way better 2017 versus 2016.
Let's do this. Let's tease that, because everyone wants to see Ben McAdoo's new haircut. And also, a quarterback decision was made yesterday, and it's damning news for the backup. You're going to stick around with this Field Yates. It could also be somewhat of an indictment on the general manager, a very, very famous general manager.
Guys don't really talk about antiperspirant. Despite that, 91% of Dove Men Plus Care users recommend it. Here's what they said.
It blocks the, perspiration, I think is the fancy word. It's comfortable. It smells nice. My girl likes the smell.
Well, it's hard. I think it's quite masculine. My underarms aren't the worst thing at the gym.
It's kind of like the Hoover Dam for my armpits, I guess.
Dove Men Plus Care antiperspirant. Tough on sweat, not on skin.
It's Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Will Kane filling in for Greeny today. The show is presented by Progressive Insurance. And all guests, which I believe the next one on tap is Charles Barkley.
Yes, it is. 7:30 Eastern.
Performance line. Yep, 7:30.
I'm just warming you guys up.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
There's the worst things in life than being Charles Barkley's warm-up act.
I'll take it.
That's Field Yates you hear on your microphone this morning. It's if you want more Field Yates in your life, by the way, and who wouldn't, you can download and subscribe to the Fantasy Focus podcast, which is available in the ESPN app and on Apple Podcasts. Quickly, we were just talking on TV about straws. We followed up on our straw game, and several bartenders have tweeted in saying, listen, small piece of advice, drink out of the straw.
Yeah, we're getting that insider information on the cleanliness of glasses in bars. So that and then to say never get a draft beer, always get a bottle.
That's what a bar owner friend of mine said. He said you would be upset to learn how often the tubes on the draft beer delivery mechanism and the
are not clean.
Yeah.
See, and that's a problem because when I travel a bit, I like to get the local draft beer. I'll go to a place and what's the local? Do the draft form.
Chicago this weekend did the exact thing.
And I kind of like to do that. And now I'm not going to change. Why would I stop now? I've been doing it all my life. If it hasn't gutted me by now, then so be it.
You ever had a beer and had that eggy smell, that kind of...
No.
You're like,
Let's talk football because I'm getting nervous.
I've been told that's because there's mildew or bacteria, something in the tube. It's a consistent rotten smell sometimes when you get a beer.
Is there any possible way you can shut up about this and ask Field something else?
Coors Light in a bottle, man.
There you go.
That works. Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
All right, Field. God, you were on fire on Twitter last night. Here's another one, or yesterday afternoon. I don't even know what the date is, so I don't know when you tweeted this.
Yeah.
But
yesterday. Yeah.
This is an interesting tweet. Quarterbacks drafted in the first round since 2006 to not assume a full-time starting gig by their second year.
Yep.
Okay.
By the start of year two.
Start of year two.
Yep.
Over the last 11 years, here's your list of first-round quarterbacks that didn't start the start of their second year. Johnny Manziel, Tim Tebow, Brady Quinn, and what looks to be now Paxton Lynch.
Yep, it was confirmed yesterday by the Denver Broncos that Trevor Siemian will keep this job to start the season. And it wasn't like he's got this job and we'll evaluate it after week one. This was an indefinite promotion, or I guess re-promotion to the starting job for Trevor Siemian. And here's what I would say. I'll start by saying this. Not all NFL players come along at the same trajectory as others. But when you take a player in the first round, you assume 4 years of contract control plus a fifth year option. A first-round pick is often where you find the players that you presume will be the best on your roster and a part of your franchise for potentially a decade or longer. If you are drafting that player and don't have intentions of using him in either of the first 2 years or for 2 years, then you have to question whether or not it's sound business. Now, there are obvious exceptions, and Aaron Rodgers is the preeminent exception. People lost their mind yesterday. What about Aaron Rodgers? Well, the difference between Aaron Rodgers being drafted as a backup versus Paxton Lynch is that Aaron Rodgers was succeeding one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time in Brett Favre. It was going to take time because Brett Favre was still playing. Paxton Lynch having to beat out Trevor Siemian is a much different dynamic. And yes, I understand that this player has, Paxton Lynch has plenty of potential opportunity in time. But 2 years in, I think the Broncos traded up and moved up from the back end of the first round, a little bit further up the first round with the intention of having Paxton Lynch start perhaps right away, if not by year two. And, today they aren't. And I think people are wondering, was it good business?
John Elway, Broncos GM in 2011. He's drafted 5 quarterbacks. 2012, second round, Brock Osweiler. no longer with the team, went to Houston. But by the way, let's remember, the Broncos offered him some money. The Broncos offered him about $30 million guaranteed. He got more money in Houston, so they were
that
trying.
Is constantly overlooked.
It's absolutely.
Oh, genius move to let Osweiler go.
Osweiler,
didn't mean to.
Not on the team. 2013 7th-rounder Zach Dysert, not on the team. 2015 7th-rounder Trevor Siemian, your starter. 2016 1st-rounder Paxton Lynch going into his second year, not starting. And this past draft in the 7th round, a kid that had some trouble at Mississippi and had to transfer, Chad Kelly. So we will see where that one goes down the road.
Coming at me.
There you go.
Here.
Get out
of
here.
Charles Barkley in the next hour. Plus, we'll play Fill in the Blank. It's Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio.
Fly with you. Get out.
Hey, sports fans, if you're heading out to watch the game and need a fill-up, why not join the Fuel Rewards program and earn rewards on Shell Fuel? Members save on their Shell fill-up every day. So sign up free today at fuelrewards.com/ESPN.
It is Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. Will Kane sitting in for Greeny today. You can hit us both up, Mike Golic and I, on the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. I'm at Will Kane, WILLCAIN.
At ESPN Golic.
And all guests will be on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line coming up at 7:30. That's going to include TNT's own Charles Barkley. But first, Golic, you've got a little update for us on one of the biggest sporting events taking place in the nation.
Yeah, it's exactly right. The Notre Dame Trail. That's a sporting event, right? 317-mile walk and bike that my wife is doing. There's 32 people doing this. It's from Vincennes, Indiana to South Bend, Indiana. Again, Father Soren, who founded Notre Dame, that was the last bit that he walked before he settled in South Bend and founded Notre Dame. So there's people that are walking and biking that distance. They're over 240 miles in at this point. She started last Sunday, so 9 days ago. She's in the midst of walking 17 miles this morning. It was actually a cool shot of them yesterday. Someone taking pictures along the way used a drone to take a picture and took a picture down on one of the groups that were walking. My wife is in that group somewhere in there. So that's a pretty cool drone picture. But, yeah, they go today. They go through Saturday. I'll join Saturday, the last day, which is 3 miles, the toughest 3 miles.
You jumped in for the final three.
After they've gone 3:14, I'm going to jump in for the 3 toughest miles. But, yeah, they have between 17 and 20-mile walks today, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, before they finish up with 3 miles on Saturday. It's unreal what she and those other 31 people have done. I mean, there's no way I could even thought about doing that. So it's, again, for the 175th anniversary of Notre Dame. She also is going to raise money for the Center for the Homeless in South Bend with it. She had a GoFundMe page, and she already went past her goals on that. So anybody that feels the need or want to give to that, we're raising a lot of money. Hopefully it'll be in the area of about $20,000 for the Center for the Homeless in South Bend. So that's a cool thing to go along with it. But pretty impressive what they're all doing in walking and biking. The biking part, they would walk like 15, 18 miles, then bike 20-some miles. The biking is done now. It's just all straight walking. So
your wife's doing somewhere between 15 and 20 miles of walking. What is this, multiple days in a row? Every day?
Every single day.
Okay, so
no days off. That walking, and then they'll get on the bike and go 17, 20, 25, 28 miles.
What's she telling you? Like, I mean, it's more
her
than,
feet hurt.
Yeah, more than her dog's barking.
That's been the main thing is she got sunburn on her lip, which she goes, didn't see that coming.
Okay.
She only got one blister. She just got it a couple of days ago. She's been very lucky with that. She's been spraying her feet with the silicone stuff, and that's worked pretty good. But she said the dogs are pretty tired. They're starting. I think she's lost a couple of toenails.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it's not the prettiest thing in the world. She'll probably want to go for that pedicure when she's done. Once she wants
grow
her
back first.
Feet. Yeah, exactly. So it's been tough. But I'm impressed with all of them because I couldn't even think about doing that at all. So they're in it right now. They've been walking for over an hour already this morning, and she listens to the show while
she does.
Oh yeah, she says 4 hours she listened to the show, to help her, get through some of the miles. So it works out pretty well for her.
That's incredibly impressive. I'm getting. We got music for her if she wants.
Yes, we
put
do.
It up.
Yeah.
She can just, there you go.
She'd love to be walking
on the trail
Sunshine
right now. She's up and going?
On the trail right now. By the way, the irony of this song, Walking on Sunshine, it is pouring raining on her right now. And it's supposed to rain all day. So,
hey, listen, it doesn't need to only be her husband talking about how impressive that is. To put that kind of mileage on your body day after day, I asked you what's hurting. I mean, I can only imagine the things that accumulate: knees, ankles, feet, toenails.
Crazy.
Waking up every morning, you've got to feel like, I don't know what you're like.
Yeah, you got to get up as Groundhog Day for 13 days.
Yeah.
So,
and by the way, it's real big of you to show up for the final 3 miles. It'll be good. Are you going to raise your hands when you cross the finish line? The media's clicking.
Well,
Are you going to
think
celebrate
the
those 3
media,
miles?
I think, will swarm around me, and I will, I'll mention my wife's name. I mean, it would only be the right thing to do,
Maybe,
correct?
Probably.
Maybe. I might, in the back end of the interview, mention her name after I talk about the grueling 3 miles I had just walked. I think the whole 3 miles I'm walking Saturday is all uphill. So I think that could be very, very good.
So you'll have something to talk about.
That's exactly right.
All right, we talked about this we talked about this a little bit earlier with Field Yates. This is just a fascinating statistic that since 2006, the number of number 1 first-round draft pick quarterbacks who have not been starting by their second year in the league includes only 4 names.
Right.
Those names are now Brady Quinn, Tim Tebow,
Johnny Manziel,
and now with the announcement that Trevor Siemian will be starting for the Denver Broncos this season, Paxton Lynch. Now, you said this earlier. I don't like putting a label on somebody. I don't like criticizing guys, especially early into their careers. But when you're on a list like that, you are in the bust zone. And John Elway has drafted a quarterback in the first round that seemingly can't beat out a 7th-round quarterback. Right. And I feel like, Golic, I think John Elway's great. He has put together a defense in Denver that obviously was a Super Bowl winning caliber defense. But sometimes we worship at the church of heroes so long that we neglect to see their flaws. And I feel like we've been worshiping at the church of Elway so long, we have not paid attention to the fact that this quarterback position has completely been a disaster since Peyton Manning's leaving. And the thing that Elway gets credit for, you touched on, is this is popular sentiment. He passed on Brock Osweiler. Wow, he dodged that bullet. He knew. But it overlooks the fact that he threw 30-some-odd million guaranteed at Brock Osweiler and just failed to get that accomplished. It's really, really a mismanagement of resources to have a team of this caliber that we know was good enough to win a Super Bowl and not be able to find the quarterback to put them in contention.
Yeah, listen, they're not the only team around that has trouble finding a quarterback after you have a great quarterback. And, oh, by the way, he was a great quarterback for them. Peyton Manning came in post-surgeries and obviously won him a Super Bowl and had a record-setting year before the injuries just really became too much for him. But you've drafted quarterbacks. So if you draft quarterbacks, that means you've done your homework on quarterbacks. That means you've the expectations on quarterbacks. Now, some of them, 5th-rounders, 7th-rounders, they're not expected to do much. But that's what kind of does it here is you have a guy in the 7th round in 2 years in a row. 2 years in a row. Last year he beat out Lynch and Mark Sanchez, and this year he beat out Lynch. So there's that side of it to say, well, Siemian is probably playing better than a 7th-rounder, so you can say good on them for finding maybe a diamond in the rough a bit to say he's a 7th-rounder. Did have 18 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Did throw for over 3,400 yards. So
maybe an emerald. Maybe not a diamond.
Okay, I'll
maybe
give
not
you that.
A diamond in
but
the
you know what? Not a lump of coal.
Okay.
And so he is turned out to give you something. But when you draft a first-rounder, the expectation is, and as I've always said, when you draft a first-round quarterback, don't expect to insert him right away. Remember, you're drafting him for a decade, okay? But the decade has to start at some point. And you just gave the number. A lot of times it starts by that second year, where now there's only just a couple since 2006 who haven't assumed the starting job by their second year.
It runs counter to everything that I feel like our conversations are always focused on. Have patience. Give more time. I mean, that's the balancing act we've always played against. The fans' call for putting the first-round draft pick on the field. No. Let's have patience. Let these guys develop. But history shows. You know what patience is? Patience is 1 year.
That's it. Yeah.
1 year.
The redshirt year at most. And even during that year, sometimes you get some time during that year. Like Paxton Lynch had a couple of starts last year, and you usually get some time, but then usually you take over that job. And it's not like he was battling another first-rounder. He was battling a 7th-rounder. So we can pat Trevor Siemian on the back and say, good job. You've been put in the situation, and you've come out on top. And then you could look at the other side and say, you took a first-round selection in Lynch. Again, I never want to look back at revisionist history and say, I want someone to fail because I think it's a bad pick. But I didn't agree with the pick at the time. I thought there's no way. The kid is physically impressive, but to me, I thought he had trouble reading. I thought he had trouble on the field, making reads, going through his progressions, and doing what he needed to do. And that's something you're seeing at the next level as well, along with some accuracy issues. So can he still grow out of that? Well, sure. It's just a matter of how much time do you give. But it is, to your point, it is interesting how we preach patience, but then by the second year, you better be starting.
You're done.
Yeah.
Patience is over.
Yeah.
I'm being critical of Elway, but we need to point out it wasn't just Elway that seemingly had an off evaluation on Paxton Lynch. The Dallas Cowboys, and I'm obviously a huge fan of the Cowboys, and they get a ton of credit for not just drafting, but bringing along Dak Prescott behind a team that's there to support him from the fourth round, wanted Paxton Lynch, was willing to trade up to get Paxton Lynch. And I remain mystified by the fact that all the resources, all the analytics, all the tape we have on these guys, and then factor in the genius quarterbacking knowledge we assume of John Elway, and you still... And I'm not saying he's done. I'm not saying Paxton Lynch is done.
Right.
But it's not looking good.
No, it looks like you missed.
It looks like you
missed.
missed.
Looks like you missed. And go a couple of years ago, who did Jerry Jones want to select? And they got Zach Martin instead. Johnny Manziel.
What do you do?
Remember, they had to be.
That's not on point.
No,
what are you doing?
But they had to be talked out of that, and thank God.
That doesn't have anything to do with the Broncos and Paxton Lynch.
Well, you mentioned Dallas were going for Paxton Lynch.
Dallas doesn't mean you have to criticize
They almost
Dallas.
made another mistake a couple of years before that with Johnny Manziel. I just wanted to kind of point that out to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
But listen, this is the story of first-round quarterbacks, right? You're talking about a 50-50 shot. Whether they're gonna make it or not. So. Paxton Lynch not going to be the starter. Broncos head coach Vance Joseph said that going with Simeon isn't just a short-term decision. Let's listen.
It's a huge deal to name a starter at any position. So it's a permanent decision. Now, obviously, outside of injury, that's different. But as far as Trevor being our guy, he's our guy. And that's why time was not a issue. It was just getting it right so we're not backpedaling in 2 weeks. So Trevor is the guy. When you watch all of the game tape from the last 2 weeks and training camp and OTAs, it was a full evaluation. He was the clear-cut winner. That being said, Trevor had a chance to be an NFL starter, for a whole year and face NFL defenses, and Paxton has not had that chance. So he had a up as far as the experience part. So. Yeah, it was separation.
Let's be honest. Trevor Simeon won the starting job over Sanchez and Lynch last year, right? And then while he did pretty well, did he do well enough to where he came into camp as the starter? No. It was a wide-open competition again. So they've gone a couple of years with wide-open competitions that Trevor Simeon has won, and their first-round draft pick has not.
There you have it. Trevor Simeon appears to be the Denver Broncos starting quarterback going into the season, according to Vance Joseph. So, in other football news, last night on Monday Night Football, the New York Giants beat the Cleveland Browns 10-6. But the real story coming out of the game is that Odell Beckham Jr. left the game to get not only examined for his ankle, but go under concussion protocol and examine if he had a concussion, which he passed and apparently was not concussed. However, a low hit by Calhoun is his last name. I don't have his first name. Bradley
Brian Bodie Calhoun, I believe. Something like that.
Certainty is awesome.
Brian Bodie. Calhoun.
Confidence is awesome.
Calhoun.
Calhoun. A low hit by Calhoun from the Cleveland Browns seemed to have injured Odell Beckham's ankle. And that set off a debate on Twitter last night and this morning on this show where defensive backs seemingly have no ability to know where to tackle a wide receiver anymore. And we've got tweets flowing in after Golic. You gave us a lesson in how to tackle.
Yeah, Teddy says NFL is going to have to resort to two-hand touch. It's not going to go that far. They're still going to be hitting and tackling and collisions on every play. Todd says, do you think the NFL games would be better if you didn't have the 5-yard rule? Again, the 5-yard rule as a defender, you can only hit a receiver until 5 yards down the field, and then you can't. That won't change because the NFL wants offense. And to get offense, you need receivers not being hit, running and being able to run a little more free down the field without worry of getting smoked before the ball even leaves the quarterback's hands, which you can do in college. Again, it's a big difference. In college, there's no 5-yard chuck rule. You can be jamming a guy the entire play until the ball leaves the quarterback's hands. In college, that changes. In the NFL, Money Mike says, I should have wrapped him up. It's the preseason. Money Mike, that's ridiculous. When you're out playing on the football field and it's a live game, it doesn't matter if it's preseason, regular season, playoffs, or the Super Bowl. You make a play the way you're supposed to make a play. So that's crazy. So that guy went low and he hit low. And that's the way guys are going to hit, as I explained earlier, because of the calls on the high hits. We just saw a flag come out earlier in that game when Brandon Marshall dropped the ball and Jabril Peppers hit him and a flag came out like they went helmet to helmet. And I thought, you got to be kidding me now. Smarter heads prevailed. The refs got together, and a couple of refs said, no, it was a shoulder. It was a good hit, and they picked the flag up, which I'm glad they did. It was a good job. Brandon Marshall, by the way, hurt his shoulder on that play. These DBs they're going to go low now because whether they go for the hip or the chest, if a receiver drops his head after he catches a ball and you hit him in the head, it's your fault. You get flagged, you get fined, so they're going to go low. D. Wade says, I don't believe that, D. Wade. If they tackled using their arms rather than launching themselves headfirst, then both injuries to the head and knees decline. Agree, but a lot of it depends on how far you are away from the receiver. So in this case, if you're farther away from the receiver, you're going to try and dive at times to make a play. I agree with the launching headfirst. That's what they're taking out of the game, and I agree with that. And the best way to tackle, obviously, is to run up, wrap up, and run through, but sometimes that's the perfect way. Unfortunately, you're not always in the perfect situation and scenario on the football field where sometimes you have to leave your feet, lead with your shoulder to take a guy's legs out or to knock him down or to knock him out of bounds. So it's a tough situation. I hate it. I hate seeing knees get hit, but I completely understand these DBs needing or wanting to go low. They know they're not going to get flagged there, but unfortunately it can lead. It's just a situation where right as Beckham's foot was coming down to step, Calhoun hit him right in that leg, and you can see kind of his foot kind of the way it moved on the ground. You could see, because I thought it was his knee at first. Turned out to be his ankle again. Better than a knee as long as nothing's broken or torn, and then we'll see just how bad it is. Now, he was moving on limping, but as I said, I've seen guys limp off the field and have a lot of damage to their legs. So we'll see. He thinks he'll be ready by week 1.
I agree with you. I don't think that tweet was from D. Wade.
No, I agree.
Not the real
do
D.
not
Wade.
think it was, no.
I doubt it. Could be. I doubt it. Speaking of basketball, by the way, one of the most authentic and honest people in all of sports media, in my humble estimation, is going to step into this show on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line to, I think, some of the most controversial times in sports and our country. That is Charles Barkley.
Right.
Whether or not we're talking about the Confederate flag at NASCAR infields or White House visits and trips or what LeBron James's future is, Charles Barkley is the guy to give you at least his very, very unvarnished, honest opinion. First, let's should we want to play fill in the blank, or do you want to put this? All right, we're going to save fill in the blank.
Okay.
I have something else to ask you.
Okay.
So, literally thinking this out loud yesterday on the air on mic, which is always a good thing to do.
Okay, sure. Just kind of go through it on air.
Just wing it here.
Okay, well, nothing wrong with that.
I'm not going to pre-think this.
Don't.
Wake up on Saturday morning, live in New York City.
Okay.
And I'm obviously from outside of Dallas, Sherman, Texas. I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan from day one of my life, and I'm brainwashing my boys to be just that as well.
Don't blame you.
Yeah. There's two, right? I mean, you either born with your team geographically or through birthright of your parents, right?
Agreed.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so it's Saturday night. There's a Cowboy game. It's preseason, but we're still gearing up. My boys wake up. The 6-year-old has a Dak Prescott jersey that he got for Christmas.
Okay.
The 9-year-old has a Zeke Elliott jersry that he got for Christmas.
Santa was good to him.
And he puts it on Saturday morning. And I look at my wife and go, is this cool? I'm not sure. Can you still wear the Zeke Elliott jersey, especially if you're a 9-year-old? Is this a thing that I should stop? And if I should, why should I stop it?
What is at 9 years old? What does your son know about the Zeke Elliott situation?
And I honestly, Golic, I don't know where you are on this. I think parents share way too many political, cultural, societal, controversial issues with little minds that are incapable of processing all the information. So he knows nothing. He knows that Zeke is suspended. I am not ready to explain the concept of domestic violence to a 9-year-old. Well, so he doesn't know. Yeah. Except that he knows Zeke did something potentially alleged to have done something bad.
So, I mean, if he doesn't know at this point and you don't believe he's old enough to know that, then let him wear the jersey.
Is it like so many things in
I mean, so what are you going to tell him? Are you going to say, don't wear it because he's suspended? I'm not telling you any more than that. Just don't wear it until he comes back.
That's a great point. How do I even explain that?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you feel he's too young to understand the ramifications of what went on, then let him wear the jersey. It's a kid.
And it's like, this, like so many things in parenting, it's about how it projects on you.
Yeah.
Right? You see the parent at the playground, it's like, no, let's share, Johnny. That's about you projecting that you're into sharing because he's 4 and he doesn't care.
I was never into projecting as a parent, quite honestly. I never really cared what the other parents thought.
But we're more similar than you realize. But that is a parenting
No,
thing.
it is. I'm with you.
I'm sending my kid out into the world wearing a jersey of a guy who's alleged to have committed domestic violence.
Right.
Is that what we should be doing?
Well, again, I think first and foremost it's up to the parent of and if you feel his mind can't grasp what that is, then let him be a kid and wear the jersey of a player he likes. And instead of just saying you can't wear that jersey, well, why, Dad? Well, he's done something bad, so just don't wear it. Well, what did he do bad? I mean, at some point, you either have to just say, I'll tell you when you're older, or I'm going to try and explain it to you while you're 9.
And if you tell him not to wear it and you put it on the shelf, is that forever? Is that during the length of his
suspension? Or is
suspension?
it till the suspension is over? I say if someone isn't ready to be told about what's going on and comprehend what's happening, and then do you give him his choice still to wear it? I mean, what if he's 14? So now he's older. Now you explain it to him.
Right.
Do you still give him the okay to wear it if he wants? Or after you explain it to him, do you hope he doesn't want to wear it? Or do you say, hey, I've explained to you why he's being suspended. If you still want to wear it, it's up to you. Or do you say, I've explained it to you, and now you're not wearing that jersey, until and then he could turn around and say, well, Daddy, why are you buying the Mayweather fight?
That's right, exactly.
Done? I mean, it's wild, isn't it?
By the way, he wore the jersey. We went ahead.
He's 9 years old. That one, to me, it's 9 years. I'm with you. I don't. You sit there, explain that to a 9-year-old. Let him wear the jersey. It's one of his favorite players.
Just a second. But speaking of that fandom thing, where I'm brainwashing my boys to be all Dallas fans, when we did a Cleveland Browns story earlier, I thought I saw your eyes light up. You're from Cleveland. You're definitely a Cavs and Indians fans, right?
Yes, definitely. I'm a Cleveland sports fan. I mean, I never went to a pro game growing up in my life. Never. Just didn't, work out to go, either doing something, parents, whatever. I never went. But I'm a fan of those teams.
I always wondered if professional sports career washes away early childhood fandom.
No, I'll always hope Cleveland does well, especially when they were in the position they were of not winning a championship. I would say my biggest rooting interest is Notre Dame between, our family, and the Fly is just all over your face now. And then the Eagles, because I spent most of my career there as well, even though I don't know anybody there anymore or was there when I was there. The Fly is just absolutely – Bickler, you are just failing miserably
this Fly is
getting the Fly out. Now the Fly is taking liberties right now. Hey, everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million, what color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh, switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
Okay. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo! Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
This Fly is now only on me. Bickler, if you don't kill this thing soon, I'm going to have to knock you out. This Fly, it's and it knows exactly what it's doing.
I'm being told that the Fly is not showing up on television. So
I don't care if it's not showing up on television. It's showing up and it's bugging me.
But I just want you to know that for a good portion of the audience, you look crazy.
I look crazy just kind of swatting at something that doesn't look like is there.
Look at you here.
So I'm like swatting.
What are you waving away there?
That are watching on TV, there's a Fly that's pestering me. It's pestering me.
who would have put the odds that Will Kane sitting in for Mike Golic this morning? By the way, Mike Greenberg this morning. It's Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. The show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Who would have guessed on the day that I sit in for Greeny that I'm not the biggest pest on set? That I'm not the one.
That's true. Normally that seat is the biggest pest on set. Now it's this stinking fly. I can't wait till I get a hold of it.
All right. Joining us now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level, make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today, is Charles Barkley, someone I'm very excited to have on the phone. Good morning, Chuck.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, Charles. So first off, a fly is just flying around my face, bugging me, and nobody seems to care. I feel like I should have people that are trying to get this fly off the set. If you had a fly flying around you on your set, would somebody help you out there or just let that thing fly all over you?
Well, they probably just let it fly all over me. They probably would throw stuff at me to make more flies come to me on our set.
I guess that's pretty true.
I know what that feels like, Chuck. I know what that feels like. All right, I said this about 15 minutes ago, Charles, that you've stepped into this show this morning in the midst, and I know you've been talking in other places as well, I guess one of the most controversial times, not just in sports media, but in our country at large. And so we're having debates about whether or not athletes should be visiting the White House, whether or not athletes should be standing for the national anthem. So I don't want to ask this question too broad, and I don't want to ask it too narrow, but where do you stand on many of these issues right now? Should you be standing for the national anthem? Would you, Charles Barkley, be visiting the White House?
Well, I think, number one, I think you should visit the White House. It's the president. It's the office. It's not the person in there. I think if you go back and look, we've criticized guys in the past who didn't go. You can't have a double standard. I would go to the White House because it's the White House. It shouldn't be a Democrat or Republican thing. That's just my personal opinion. As far as the national anthem, I think that if you want to stand or kneel, that's up to the individual. But I think the media, which I'm part of, I think they've hijacked the story, and we spend all our time talking about who's standing, who's not standing, who's a good guy, who's a bad guy. You're dictated whether you're a good guy or a bad guy if you're not standing for the anthem. And we haven't solved one single issue. We don't even talk about the issues anymore. And that's the thing that probably disappoints me the most. I mean, when's the last time we ever talked about why these guys are actually kneeling or holding up their fists? We spend all our time like, who's doing it this? Okay, all the black guys doing it, and most of them are not. Oh, we need a white guy. Okay, now we got some white guys. And we spend all our time wasting energy and effort, and we haven't solved one single. We don't even talk about the issues anymore.
I completely agree about both topics. My thought on the White House is I would go. I respect the office of the White House, so I would go there. And if you don't want to go, then don't go. I could care less if you go or not. But I would go because it is the office of the White House. And that's what we started talking about yesterday. And I think you're right, is and it's a bad comparison, but I'll make it nonetheless to Deflategate with Tom Brady. Once that went to court, nobody even mentioned, under deflated balls on the football field anymore. It was all about the court. You completely lost sight of what the original sin supposedly was to what this battle was in Deflategate. And I feel the same way. We're losing sight of why the people were sitting or why they're kneeling. So how do we get that back? And we are getting more people being aware of it and making their stance or their kneel or their arm around a guy who has a fist up or whatever they're doing. How do we get back to, in your opinion, the actual statement that you're trying to make?
Well, I've told these guys for years, not just when this thing happened in the last year, we need, as black players, we need to go back in our community. We got some serious issues. Number one, the public school system, the greatest country in the world. We got the worst public school system in the country. We need to find a way to help these kids get educated, also get into college, so they'll be in a more conducive learning environment. We've got to work out our relationship with the cops. We don't want young black men killed by the cops. But also, we got to take some personal responsibility to all the black-on-black crime that's going on in our own community. The cops come in there when they make mistakes. we need to hold them accountable. But also, we got to understand, they come in there, they're nervous, they're hyper, they're going to make some mistakes. That doesn't excuse it, but we have to take some personal responsibility. And I've heard these other idiots out there, and I want to call them idiots because I want to make it clear I think they're idiots. I've heard them say, well, white people kill white people and Hispanic people kill Hispanic people because that's their neighborhood. I said, yeah, that's true, but they're not killing each other at the level we are in the black community. So I want them to know every time they use that argument, I think they're idiots. We as black people got to start having more respect for each other. We got to stop killing each other. And then I think last and definitely not least, we got to give black people economic opportunity. And also poor white people, because they're in the same boat as black people. You know, everybody want to make this thing always about black and white. It's really about economics, because poor white people are just in the same crappy boat as black people. And that's what we need to talk about and stop worrying about who's standing for the anthem and things like that.
Charles, I completely agree with you on the good guy versus bad guy thing. In fact, I think I probably lost my temper on First Take last Friday talking about just that. And to be completely honest, to some extent, I probably need to take some responsibility. Not for losing my temper, of course. I need to take responsibility for that. No, but who's sitting, who's standing? You know, I've been hard on Colin Kaepernick. I don't like someone sitting for the national anthem, but I don't mean to turn it into good guy versus bad guy, because that's what I think we're getting entirely too much of. But one of the arguments that's been made back to me, Charles, is I've asked for specificity. You said, let's move to something that we can solve. Let's move to a productive conversation. And one of the things I've required, whether or not I've had conversations with Bomani Jones or Stephen A. Smith or whoever it is, let's have specifics then. You know, I feel like from Kaepernick's talk of police brutality to Michael Bennett's talk of inequality to Malcolm Jenkins' talk of inequality and unity with Khalil Mack, it gets broad, it gets watered down, it gets all-encompassing, where we don't identify a specific thing like you just did when it comes to the public school system, that we can say, okay, that's why we're sitting, this is what we can solve. But I'm being told sometimes I'm being purposefully obtuse by continually asking for specifics. Am I, Charles?
Well, I think, number one, it bothers me when I've watched your show. It bothers me when guys try to make it where you're not down for the cause. You don't understand as a white person. First of all, let's get one thing straight. If you go back and look at history, even going back to Mississippi with the civil rights workers, that poor young white girl got killed in Charlottesville last week. White people have always been part of the civil rights movement. Always. And also, if you look at a lot of these protests around the country, there's a lot of white people there. So let's quit making this thing about black and white. I don't judge white people by all those fools down in Charlottesville who are neo-Nazis, who are carrying Confederate flags and things like that. And I don't, that bothers me. If you're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution. And we've had a private conversation. I think you're part of the solution. And I hate when people say, you hear it all the time, well, you don't know what it's like to be black. Well, I don't know what it's like to be black. I don't know what it's like to be white, but I can be sympathetic to other people's causes. And like I say, I don't know anything about the Holocaust or what I read through history, but I can be sympathetic when my Jewish friends talk about it. Same thing. People don't want to see young black men killed. I don't think you just have to be a human being to understand that. But it's not simple. It's not an A or a B answer. It's a lot of convoluted things going on. But until we talk about them with I call it a pure heart, where you don't have a hidden agenda, we're never going to solve these problems. They are problems, but we need to talk about them, not yell and scream, and until we do that, we're never going to go forward.
Charles, let's end on a basketball note on the court, or, well, kind of on the court. Magic Johnson, some comments, maybe something from Jimmy Kimmel or others talking about impermissible contact with Paul George. Do you see anything coming from this? Do you think this is something that may be too hard to prove, or do you see the Lakers possibly getting in trouble for this?
Well, Mike, I don't know what the NBA has, to be honest with you. I mean, you never know until you get before the judge and the jury what they have. I'd be very surprised if they had anything on Magic. Magic is going to be great for the Lakers. listen, I don't think it's a secret. I think it's like one of the worst kept secrets in the world that Paul George wants to go to the Lakers next summer. I hope he stays in Oklahoma City, just like I hope LeBron stays in Cleveland. You know, at some point the fans are going to turn on the players. If at some point they're going to say, wait a minute, you guys don't have any loyalty toward our city. That to me is going to be the tipping point. At some point the fans are going to revolt. We don't mind you guys making $30, $40, $50 million, but y'all have zero loyalty to your city. Y'all just want to go and play on the super teams. That's going to be what's going to be interesting in the next 3 or 4 years in the NBA when the fans say, I've had enough. I'm not going to pay these outrageous ticket prices. And you guys got zero loyalty. You know, Kyrie wants to leave Cleveland. He's played his entire career. I think at some point the fans are going to say, hey, listen, you guys got no loyalty. We're not going to have any loyalty.
All right. Yeah. Charles, we appreciate you getting up this morning. You're probably up. You're probably on the treadmill, right? What did we interrupt?
I will. Hey, I will say this. You two guys have the best hair or any duo in the history of broadcast television in a sports talk format.
You did. I didn't like how you narrowed it down as you went. You kept going from the history of broadcast television, and then you narrowed it down to a sports talk format.
To morning sports talk, to morning sports radio, to that whole deal. But we appreciate the compliment, Charles, man. Thanks, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Charles.
I pulled out we were looking at old pictures. I forgot why we had them out, but I saw a picture of old picture when I was at the Eagles when Charles was in Philadelphia, and a young Mike Golic and a young Charles Barkley, along with like a young Reggie White, and man, it was good to be young.
Guys don't really talk about antiperspirant. Despite that, 91% of Dove Men Plus Care users recommend it. Here's what they said.
It blocks the, perspiration, I think is the fancy word. It's comfortable. It smells nice. My girl likes the smell.
Well, it's
hard.
I think it's quite masculine. My underarms aren't the worst thing at the gym.
It's kind of like the Hoover Dam from my armpits, I guess.
Dove Men Plus Care Antiperspirant. Tough on sweat, not on skin.
Talking about your sons, one of them, you're Dallas Cowboy fans, and you've brainwashed your sons. Your 6-year-old was wearing a Dak Prescott jersey, and your 9-year-old a Zeke Elliott jersey. And you were wondering, 9 years old, wearing the jersey, suspended for domestic violence right now, allegation. What do you tell your kid? And I was like, basically 9 years old. That's a little young. Let a kid be a kid. Leland says, Will, this isn't what wearing the jersey should mean. It means he likes the player, not condoning the actions. Brian said, I second what you said on Mike and Mike Will about parents sharing too much real-world stuff with their children. Let kids be kids. And that's certainly true to a point. At some point, you do have to explain things to your kids. I guess it's just a matter of you as a parent, when you think your kid, and you're the one, you know your kids best, is when you think they're old enough to comprehend. And sometimes do we do that too early, thinking our kids should comprehend it, or you just as a parent trying to explain things to your kid? And how much is it that you're really explaining it to your kid, or you're worried about what other parents think about you?
Right. In the end, I think that's what this is about. Like most things in parenting, what are other parents going to say about me? Oh, look at that. In fact, I just got this text from Stugotz just a moment ago. He texted it to me and said, it's not about your kid. The other parents whisper, can you believe Kane let their son wear that Zeke jersey? That's why we all sit there and go, should we let him wear the Zeke jersey?
Yeah.
What are the other parents
Should we talk to our 9-year-old about all that? I mean, it's at some point you have to just parent your kid the way you think is right, and not worry about what other parents are going to think about this. But so I